just another Manic Monday with Zinnia. And I do mean manic in the sense of completely unhinged and unsustainable positive energy, and not in the sense of busy because I have a luxuriously unbusy day today. So, yeah, this feels like a vlog setup, but actually, I'm not really. I mean, it's a quasi vlog, let's be real. Like, I'm not organized enough to really do like sit down videos that are sensible. Oh, I have this really, like, this unauthorized ducktail swoop thing going on here. That's okay. Let's stop that. Okay, so since the end of November, I've done not that much writing. Today's Monday, December 8th, and my shoulder, I can do this now. I got, if you care, if you're interested, I got an injection, corticosteroid injection into my joint. They call it a joint infiltration, which to me sounds like some like 1920s gangster, like, yeah, let's infiltrate this joint. It's really a weird thing to say, I think, but the needle is like this long, and he just shot a bunch of drugs into the space inside my joint, and I'm feeling so much better. So over the weekend, I did a lot of Christmas crafts with my daughters, and like we made cookies, we watched Home Alone. Had a very, very 90s Christmas Saturday. And then yesterday, Sunday, I deep cleaned most of the apartment. We're talking like, yeah, manic a little bit. Sorry if that's triggering to use this psychology word, but I was scrubbing cabinet doors and like really getting into things. So yeah, my shoulder is much better. And I went to the gym this morning, had a nice long walk on the treadmill, and I finished most of that book I've been talking about. This, like, what is it even? Let me just look. I always refer to it as a Disturbance in Two Doorways, but that's just the method. That's not the name of the actual book. It's, okay, the author is James Scott Bell. I know that. Oh, the book is just called Plot and Structure. Why can't I remember that? Okay, James Scott Bell, Plot and Structure, and yeah, I still have some pages left to go. This book reads very like textbook, sort of. There are anecdotes and a lot of examples, and there are like some exercises in there. But the part that really interests me is the Disturbance in Two Doorways segment, where he's really laying out how to write a book with kind of the least number of structured beats possible, I think. I'm really into it. So I have to preface this by saying I'm not a Save the Cat hater. Well, what I mean is, if Save the Cat really works for you, I think you should do Save the Cat. Yeah, I hold nothing against people who like Save the Cat. Like, I think I've read it. I've read Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I think I understand that, yeah, you can map a lot of stories onto this beat sheet, and you can see these in a lot of classic tales. You can see these beats pop out, like watching movies and reading books. And yeah, it's a structure that is inherent in storytelling. I agree. However, Save the Cat just doesn't work for me. And I think there are a few reasons why. I think the number one reason that I can give is that Save the Cat really, really feels like homework to me. And my little ADHD brain is like, I don't want to do this. Why are you making me do this? So it kind of takes the fun out of writing for me, and it's just too granular, I guess I should say. Like, how many beats are in Save the Cat? Is it like 14 beats? Oh, I think it's 15. I had to check. I think it's 15 beats. Anyway, that is just like way too many for me to stay interested in. And yeah, Save the Cat really wants you to outline or reverse outline or just like think so much about structure. And yes, okay, novel writing is somewhat formulaic. There are structures, there are things that you need to do. But I think what I like about Bell's Disturbance in Two Doorways is that instead of a beat sheet, we have more like a beat post-it. And that is so much more my speed. It's literally on a post-it. Like, I wrote it down. And I could fit descriptions of each one. Number 1, disturbance. You disrupt the status quo of the lead. He calls it the lead, of the lead's life. He gives an example of, like, maybe on the first page, the police have pulled up outside. Whatever, you know, something like that. The first page of my new book that I'm writing. Oh, by the way, like I said my name, I think, but I'm Zinnia, and I'm currently drafting an adaptation, a retelling of The Monkey's Paw. I guess the best way to describe it is like e-commerce horror set in Ho Chi Minh City, like present day, but with a mystical and magical, omniscient narrator that's kind of a timeless being. So it really straddles horror and fantasy. I think maybe you could say it's cosmic horror. I'm still working on this part. But anyway, yeah. So I'm working on drafting this book, and I'm past the doorway number 1, but I'll get back to that. So on the first page of my novel, we get the main character. She's at work, and life is disturbed. Her boss, who is really the only reason that she has a job at this company, he's leaving the company. And this kind of upends her security, her safety at work, and she's already an insecure type of person. So this is really this is really like upending and disrupting and disturbing everything that she knows. So that's the disturbance in my book. But so the disturbance could be something big, like a bomb goes off, the cops show up, you know, anything like that. Or it could be something small, like your boss is quitting, or someone tells you, I don't know, some piece of news. And then doorway 1 comes at, like, let's see, I wrote it in my notes. Oh, also, I love a notebook. The only thing I love more than a notebook is a free notebook. And my husband presented a paper at a techie academia conference, and they gave this as the little gift, and he didn't want it for some reason. It's like a nice one. It has the rings in it and everything. I love it. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I wrote these are the notes that I wrote. 1 page of notes is enough, so much more my speed than 15 beats and then detailed information about each beat. I can't handle it. Okay, I'm really sounding angry about Save the Cat, and I'm not. I'm just saying there's so much focus placed on Save the Cat within Authortube and within like writing communities that it sometimes makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong by not following Save the Cat. So that's what this video is really for. It's to let you know that it's possible to write a novel that's well structured without having 15 beats. Okay. So the disturbance may appear on page 1 or even in the first sentence. So this is similar to an inciting incident, sort of, but really it's just upset the status quo. Okay, so next you need to pass through doorway number 1 about 1/5 of the way into the book, or sooner than that. So like 20%, is that what that is? 1/5 is 20%, right? Okay. You pass through the second doorway during what would be like normally considered like Act 2. There are 3 acts in this book, and he also talks about Act 1, 2, and 3. So basically, the middle part of the book is dealing with doorway number 1 and doorway number 2. So I keep saying doorway, but what do we really mean by doorway? Doorways are points of no return. So the doorway is like, once the character meets this complication in the book or makes a choice, they cannot go back. And you see this in Save the Cat also. There's a beat in Save the Cat where it's like a point of no return. But this happens at least twice in the Disturbance and Two Doorways method. And really, the difference between Save the Cat and Disturbance and Two Doorways is that Save the Cat is about pacing and things that like need to happen. And Disturbance in Two Doorways is about propulsion and like complication and like rising tension. So essentially, yeah, that's the difference. Is that Save the Cat is more, I feel like a little bit more winding, and Disturbance in Two Doorways is like a cannonball. Like you're gonna get some twists and turns on the way to the ending, but you're really kind of have a more singular focus than in Save the Cat. Not to say, I mean, you can have a B plot. Definitely, there are B plots in the Disturbance in Two Doorways kind of book, but the B plot is always going to add up toward more momentum for the A plot. What else did I write? Oh, and the stakes. He describes the stakes as death. So there are 3 types of death: physical, professional, or psychological. So these stakes of one of these types of death have to remain a real possibility until the conflict is resolved at the end of Act 2, beginning of Act 3. Act 3 is going to be a lot shorter than the other acts. It happens after the second doorway is mostly resolved. It's 3/4 of the way through the book, or even later. So I feel like you have a much shorter Act 3 you would have with like the Save the Cat. And then Act 3 may have a twist to add more suspense. One of the examples he gave in the book, he was talking about The Wizard of Oz, but like the film version. And maybe it's the same thing that happens in the novel. I don't remember. But in the film version, they kill the Wicked Witch of the West. She throws water. Wicked Witch of the West, I'm melting. Okay. And then they get back to the city of Oz, and then there's this added twist that like the wizard doesn't really know how to send her home. And so it adds this extra layer of suspense, like, is she actually going to get home? But it's still short. That twist is quickly resolved, and then she gets home. So I feel like, yeah, that's an important thing. Okay, I wrote in all caps, the lead has an objective, obviously, and the majority of the story is the confrontation, which in Save the Cat, I feel like it's not. So yeah, it is a different way to approach storytelling. Save the Cat feels a little bit more about emotional growth, and the Disturbance in Two Doorways feels a lot more active, action-based. Although of course you will have interiority and character development, but maybe to a little bit of a lesser degree. Then he says the knockout ending satisfies questions and the reader. So it's that like little last quarter of the book or less that's going to really tie everything together and wrap everything up. Yeah, what other? I guess there's one other note that I wrote here that says additional beats must all give momentum to the main conflict. Yeah. And I'm sure that Save the Cat also has some caveats where the writer, or what's her name, Jessica Brody, where she says like everything needs to tie back into the main plot. But I think it's like ties in, but not necessarily about like forward momentum. Because I really, when I was reading what Belle was writing, it seemed like there was so much emphasis on momentum and conflict, and I didn't walk away from reading Save the Cat with that feeling. I walked away from Save the Cat thinking like, okay, I need to accomplish all of these tasks that will point to a main conflict, but they're not, like the state the theme and the fun and games section, like that part, it's related to the conflict, but doesn't necessarily give momentum. Fun and games is like a montage of the character going into the new world. Well, that's not really momentum for the conflict, in my opinion. So maybe I'm thinking of this wrong. If you disagree with me, let me know. That's just where I'm coming from. Let's see. I feel like I had a couple other notes on my laptop that I wanted to talk about. Okay, yeah, I wrote Save the Cat feels more about emotions, and Disturbance in Two Doorways is more about escalation. Yeah. And I do really like an emotional book, but I also like a lot of action combined. And I'll say kind of a recent book that I really loved, I've mentioned it also, Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. That book has a ton of emotion, but also has the characters passing through like doorways. It's a disturbance in two doorways. Like you can kind of map the disturbance and then both of the doorways into the book, and it really works. So, and there's a lot of emotional depth and growth, but there's also a ton of action in that book. So like it's a literal journey book. Not necessarily a hero's journey, maybe kind of. But yeah, Disturbance in Two Doorways can work for a hero's journey as well. So yeah, that's something I wanted to say. What else? Yeah, I was thinking about like Save the Cat and genre. I know that people say Save the Cat works for every genre. I don't know if Save the Cat works really well for commercial fiction, and there's nothing wrong with commercial fiction, and I love to read a lot of it. But I think if you want to write something a little more experimental or a little bit weird, Save the Cat's probably not the way to go, but you could do a Disturbance in Two Doorways. It's just a lot more loosey-goosey. And yeah, Save the Cat, like I mentioned before, like Save the Cat is really like focused on either outlining or fast drafting and then reverse outlining and then rewriting, which I think those are the two main approaches people use to applying Save the Cat. But a Disturbance in Two Doorways, I just think is better for pantsers or plantsers. Like, I've become a plantser. My current project, Project Primate, like, I'm planting it. Like, I have a pretty solid outline, but it doesn't contain everything. I have a lot of room for, like, improvisation, and I have some sections of the book where I've written, this is what I want, like, the outcome to be, and this is what I want the feelings and, like, the confrontation to be, maybe, but I don't have a lot of, like, the details in there. So, yeah, and I feel like I'm going to deviate a lot from the outline that I wrote, and I'm really going to try and focus on momentum, because, yeah, Project Primate is, I mean, I would say it's an experimental format, because it's close third person, but it has an omniscient narrator who also breaks the fourth wall and does a lot of like first person talking. Maybe not a lot, but some. And then we have like the main linear A plot that's kind of punctuated and interrupted by these like asides and anecdotes and vignettes that the omniscient narrator is throwing in to kind of mirror what's happening to the main character in the main plot, but also to kind of give us a little bit of backstory or like world building, but in a way that's hopefully going to propel the plot forward or propel the reader's engagement and interest, like to amp that up and to like build suspense. So yeah, that's basically it, I guess. So like I said, maybe you love Save the Cat and it works for you, and I'm not trying to dissuade you from using it, although maybe it sounds like I am. But if Save the Cat's not working for you, or if you find yourself kind of getting bogged down in the 15 beats or getting bored, just go with me a little bit and give Disturbance in Two Doorways a try and just see if that helps you to alleviate that. But yeah, okay. So I think this actually is going to be like a quasi-vlog, because I have been at home a lot lately with my shoulder hurt especially, and like taking like not strong opioids, but like enough that I wasn't comfortable driving. I think I'm going to get on my bike and I'm going to go drive to like a cafe somewhere, a tea shop maybe, and take my computer and go write for a couple of hours this afternoon. I have some late night classes tonight, but I don't need to prep anything. So I have a few hours before school pickup where I can go and write, and I'm going to do that. And maybe you should just come with me, and then later maybe I will talk a little bit about Brumalia. I think is that what I was looking up earlier? Like, okay. So yeah, I said my book is set in present day Ho Chi Minh City, which is true, but I'm also, I have like one of the asides, or like one of the anecdote vignettes from the past, like a flashback almost, is set in the Byzantine era it's set in Old Byzantium in the age of Justinian. And yeah, we're going to be dealing with like Brumalia, which I didn't know about. So I'm doing some like research about like feast days in the Byzantine Empire, learning some new stuff. But yeah, it's like I want to incorporate that because I think it gives it some nice like cosmic old world creep factor. But yeah, okay, I'm blah blah blahing. But later I'm going to talk more about that and the progress that I get today, and I'll let you know. And let's go to the tea shop. Bye.
So, when I sat down at my usual tea shop, I realized that this is a super unseasonal scene for a December vlog. I've been watching Becca Tobar's Vlogmas, and Meredith E. Phillips is over there with her little pumpkin spice candle, and Alyssa in the books is always looking all cozy in her fuzzy little zippy sweaters. And then there's me, surrounded by foliage in a t-shirt. Maybe I should have gone over to the fancy bakery that has a Christmas tree in the window to try and, I guess, fit in a little bit. Well, anyway, I hope you can enjoy Vietnam's version of the holidays with me. My husband booked a week at a beach resort, so we'll be having a very sunny Christmas, and now I just have to figure out how to help Santa find us there. But the logistics are, of course, always going to fall to me. Anyway, back to writing. This was a super productive session for me because I have intentionally never connected to the Wi-Fi at this tea shop, so I can't get distracted by research or emails or anything else while I'm here. I did have the information I'd already pulled up about Brumalia, which is the Eastern Roman Empire, or like Byzantine celebration of the winter solstice. It was a weird example of how paganism was officially being stamped out, but some of the traditions were not only tolerated, but actually celebrated within the imperial court itself. I also had some choices to make about symbolism and like what shape I wanted to choose for the cursed amulet that's fundamental to this tale within a tale. I'm also getting to play with historical names and real events, like the Plague of Justinian. I guess this is an example of write what you don't really know and take joy in getting to research little niche trivia. In this particular passage that I was writing, I'm drawing from Matt Stone and Trey Parker's storytelling method, which is the but and therefore rule. Some people might not really agree with their humor or political leanings. Personally, I'm a kind of a South Park fan, always have been since the 90s. But even if you don't get down with what they're talking about, you have to be able to see that their way of storytelling really packs a punch, and they just put so much tension into short little episodes. And I think that that's something that we can really bring into novel writing, especially like in parallel with a method like Disturbance and Two Doorways. So with the but and therefore rule, you're using but and therefore instead of this happened and then this other thing happened. Every event needs to either be a complication, a but, or a direct result, a therefore. So this is a way to build a ton of momentum. So this little tale within a tale chapter that I wrote is only about 1800 words, like start to finish, and I completed it in this sitting. And I wanted it to be very tight and focused on the action. The characters don't appear in any other part of the main narrative, so developing them beyond their fatal flaw isn't really necessary. It was really fun though, and now I'm back to the main plot for a few chapters, but I have another aside anecdote planned for maybe I'm on chapter 10, so maybe around chapter 15 I'll be inserting that next aside or anecdote. I have several of them like sketched out, but not really outlined. Um but yeah, at this point, I don't know. I'm not really even worrying about how readers will navigate the jumps between the main plot and these deviations with the omniscient narrator. That's something I guess I'll just have to deal with later. But I kind of think that anyone who would commit to picking up a book that's presented as a contemporary e-commerce retelling of The Monkey's Paw is the type of reader who's ready to suspend their disbelief and just kind of go with some weird shit. Anyway, that's all for now. If you've made it this far, leave me a tropical emoji in the comments for my non-traditional winter holiday mood. And tell me if you're a Save the Cat disciple or if you're over on the chaos side of things with me. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you later. Bye.